You've been told your whole life that love is everything. That as long as you love each other, everything will work out. That if the feeling is strong enough, it will carry you through the storms. But here's the brutal truth. Love alone isn't enough. Love is a spark, but it's not the firewood. Love is the seed, but it's not the water, the sunlight, or the soil. You can be madly in love with someone and still end up in a toxic, broken relationship because you thought love would fix what only effort, respect, and commitment can actually fix. Think about it. How many times have you seen two people who love each other deeply but can't stop hurting one another? How many people stay trapped in cycles of arguing, jealousy, silence, or distance, all while clinging to the phrase, "but I love them," as if those three words magically erase the damage? Love doesn't erase neglect. Love doesn't erase lies. Love doesn't erase disrespect. You know why? Because love without action is just a feeling. And feelings fade when they aren't supported by choices. Real relationships aren't built on butterflies in your stomach. They're built on consistent actions, showing up when it's inconvenient, choosing patience when you're frustrated, speaking the truth when lying would be easier, respecting boundaries even when you don't understand them. That's the foundation. Love is the beginning, not the maintenance plan. And yet, so many people confuse the high of being in love with the hard work of staying in love. Falling in love feels effortless. It's exciting, intoxicating, magnetic. But what happens when life hits? What happens when bills pile up? When the stress of work takes over? When one of you is struggling with your own demons? In those moments, love feels smaller. It's not enough to hold everything together unless it's backed up with discipline, respect, and daily effort. Here's the harsh reality. You can love someone and still be a terrible partner to them. You can love someone and still not know how to communicate with them. You can love someone and still betray them with your actions. People say, "But I loved you," as if that excuse is everything else. No, love without accountability is just selfishness dressed up as affection. And you need to understand this truth, not just for your partner, but for yourself. Because you deserve more than love and words. You deserve consistency. You deserve effort. You deserve someone who not only feels something for you, but proves it in the way they show up. That means if all you're holding on to in your relationship is love, but there's no trust, no communication, no growth, then you're holding on to an illusion. Think of love as the engine of a car. It's powerful. It's necessary. But if you never maintain it, if you never put in oil, if you never fix what's broken, that engine is going to die no matter how shiny the car looks from the outside. Love without maintenance will stall. It will leave you stranded, and it will make you resent the very thing that once felt magical. Another truth: love is not sacrifice at the expense of your soul. Too many people mistake endurance for love. They stay in relationships where they're not respected, where they're drained, where they're constantly shrinking just to keep the peace, all in the name of love. That isn't love. That's fear disguised as loyalty, because real love doesn't demand that you abandon yourself. Real love expands you. Real love challenges you to grow without erasing who you are. So if you're listening to this, I want you to ask yourself, what are you accepting in the name of love that has nothing to do with love? Are you excusing behavior that breaks you down just because you're afraid of letting go? Are you convincing yourself that love will change them? Love will fix them. Love will save them. Because love doesn't fix people. People fix themselves when they choose to. And no matter how much you love someone, if they don't choose to change, your love won't do it for them. Love can inspire. Love can support. Love can guide. But love cannot replace personal responsibility. It cannot stand in for growth. It cannot make up for a lack of respect or consistency. And if you're counting on love alone to keep your relationship alive, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. The brutal truth is love without trust is chaos. Love without respect is empty. Love without action is a lie. So stop telling yourself that love is enough when you're sitting in a relationship that lacks everything else. Stop clinging to a feeling while the reality of your situation screams otherwise. Love should be the spark that makes you fight for the relationship. But it's the work, the effort, and the choices you both make every day that keep it alive. Perfect on the keynote. Your standards shape the relationship in the same raw, powerful, no fluff speech style, with as no ending sentence as you requested. Let's talk about the truth. Most people don't want to face is your standards shape the relationship you have and not your partner's feelings, not how much history you share, not even how deeply you love each other. The quality of your relationship is a direct reflection of what you demand, what you tolerate, and what you allow to continue. Every single relationship you're in, romantic, friendship, even professional, runs on the rules you silently set. People treat you based on what you've taught them they can get away with. If you've trained someone that they can lie and you'll forgive it, they will lie again. If you've trained someone that they can ignore your needs and you'll still show up, they'll keep ignoring them. If you've trained someone that they can give the bare minimum and you'll carry the weight, they will keep doing the bare minimum. That's not because they don't care. It's because you allowed the standards. Standards are not about being demanding, controlling, or impossible to please. Standards are about respect. They are about defining how you deserve to be treated and refusing to settle for less than that. Think of standards as boundaries with teeth. They are the invisible lines that say this is acceptable and this is not, and here's the brutal truth. If you don't set the standard, the relationship will set it for you. Silence communicates. Every time you let something slide, that cuts you down. Every time you swallow your words just to keep the peace, every time you excuse behavior with, that's just how they are, you're lowering the bar. You're teaching the other person that your needs are negotiable. And once you start sending that message, it's almost impossible to reverse it. Look back at your relationships. How many times have you told yourself, it'll get better if I just wait? They'll realize my worth eventually. But here's the thing. Why would they raise their effort when you've already proven you'll accept the version of them that doesn't try? Why would someone give you respect when you've already accepted disrespect without consequences? Why would they step up when you've already shown them you'll stay whether they do or not? It's not cruel to have standards. It's cruel to yourself not to. Because every time you drop your standards to keep someone in your life, you abandon yourself. You betray your own worth, and nothing corrodes your spirit faster than the quiet self-betrayal of knowing you accepted less than you deserve just to avoid being alone. Your standards are like the thermostat in your relationship. If you set it high at respect, honesty, effort, then that's the temperature the relationship rises to. If you set it low at excuses, neglect, half-truths, that's the temperature it sinks to. People don't usually rise above the standards you enforce. They meet them or they fall below them. That's why raising your standards is the fastest way to change not just your relationship, but your entire life. Think about it. The moment you decide, I will not tolerate lies, the relationship shifts. The moment you say, I will not beg for attention, the energy changes. The moment you declare, I will not shrink myself to fit into this love, the dynamic is different. Why? Because standards create accountability. They force the other person to decide. Either rise up or step out, and if they step out, good. Because your standard just filtered out someone unwilling to meet you where you deserve to be. People fear setting standards because they're afraid of loss. They think, if I demand more, maybe they'll leave. But let me ask you, what's the bigger loss? Someone leaving because you required respect, or you staying in something that eats you alive every single day? Which one is really more painful? Which one robs more years from your life? Here's another truth. Standards aren't just about what you expect from others. They're also about what you expect from yourself. You can't demand honesty if you're not honest. You can't demand growth if you're unwilling to grow. You can't demand consistency if you show up when it's convenient and disappear when it's not. Your standards have to apply in both directions. Otherwise, you're not setting standards, you're issuing ultimatums. So stop blaming your partner. Stop blaming your circumstances. Stop blaming fate. The relationship you're in today is shaped by the standards you've either raised or lowered over time. And if it's not what you want, that's your sign to adjust the bar. Raise it higher. Refuse to drop it for anyone, because lowering your standards might keep someone around temporarily, but it will destroy you slowly. Raising them might scare some people away, but the ones who stay will show up stronger, truer, and more committed. Here's your conflict doesn't destroy love. Avoidance does, written in the same raw and direct style. With us, no ending sentences. You ask people think the biggest threat to love is conflict. They think arguments, disagreements, tension, and raised voices are what break couples apart. They look at conflict and say, if we're fighting, something is wrong. But that's not the truth. Conflict doesn't destroy love. Avoidance does. Let me explain. Conflict is not the poison. Conflict is the pressure valve. It's the release of everything unsaid, everything buried, everything boiling beneath the surface. When you fight, it means you care enough to bring your feelings to the table. It means you're still engaged, still willing to speak, still fighting for the connection. Avoidance, on the other hand, is silence. It's stuffing down your needs because you don't want to upset the other person. It's holding back your truth because you're afraid of starting an argument. It's pretending everything is fine while resentment eats you alive. Avoidance is what slowly rots the foundation of a relationship until one day you wake up next to someone you barely recognize. Think about it. Couples who never argue are not necessarily couples who are happy. Sometimes they're just couples who avoid. And avoidance builds distance. It creates invisible walls brick by brick. One day it's not speaking up about something small. The next day, it's swallowing your hurt when you feel neglected. Soon, it's a pattern. You stop asking for what you need. You stop expressing disappointment. You stop telling the truth. And with each silence, you disconnect a little more. The brutal truth is this: you cannot have intimacy without honesty, and you cannot have honesty without conflict. If you're unwilling to fight for your needs, you will lose yourself. If you're unwilling to sit in the discomfort of hard conversations, your relationship will stay shallow. Real love requires friction. Real love requires the courage to say, this isn't working for me, and the patience to sit together until you find a better way. Conflict, when done with respect, is actually the glue. It's the workout that makes the relationship stronger. Just like muscles tear and rebuild through resistance, relationships grow when two people lean into their differences and work them out. Every time you resolve a conflict, you learn more about each other. You learn where your partner's boundaries are. You learn where your own blind spots are. You learn how to compromise, how to listen, how to adapt. That's growth. That's depth. Avoidance robs you of that growth. Avoidance keeps everything surface level. And when you live on the surface long enough, the love you once had drowns in unspoken words. Avoidance is what makes people say, we just drifted apart. No, you didn't drift apart. You avoided the hard stuff. You avoided the messy truth. You avoided each other until there was nothing left but distance. Conflict doesn't mean you're incompatible. It means you're two human beings with different experiences, different needs, and different ones trying to build something together. Of course there will be friction. Of course there will be misunderstandings. That doesn't mean you're failing. That means you're real. The couples who make it aren't the ones who never argue. They're the ones who argue and then repair. They're the ones who come back to the table and say, I'm sorry for how I handled that. Here's what I really meant. Here's what I need from you. Repair is what matters. Avoidance blocks repair because avoidance blocks honesty. And without honesty, there is no foundation to repair. You have to understand love is not about harmony all the time. Love is about weathering storms together. And storms come from conflict. If you run every time the skies get dark, you will never build a relationship that lasts. If you avoid every hard conversation, you'll never know if the love you have can survive reality. Ask yourself this, what are you avoiding in your relationship right now? What conversations are you too afraid to have? What truths are you bearing because you don't want to deal with the fallout? That avoidance is where the danger lies. That's where the cracks in your foundation are spreading, because silence is not peace. Silence is poison. When you choose to avoid, you choose short-term comfort over long-term connection. You buy temporary calm at the cost of permanent intimacy. You tell yourself, at least we're not fighting, but what you really mean is, at least we're not facing the truth. That truth doesn't go away just because you avoid it. It grows. It festers. It shows up in distance, in resentment, in coldness, and eventually it kills the love you thought you were protecting. So stop fearing conflict. Fear avoidance. Fear the moment you no longer care enough to speak. Fear the moment you stop trying to be understood. Fear the moment silence feels safer than honesty, because that's the real death of love. That's when the relationship stops growing. That's when two people stop being partners and start being strangers living under the same roof. Keynote written in the same direct, raw motivational speech. Every relationship that lasts, every relationship that deepens, every relationship that survives the storms has one thing in common: growth must be mutual, not one-sided, not uneven, mutual. Because here's the brutal truth. If one person is growing and the other is standing still, the relationship will eventually snap. If one person is leveling up and the other is refusing to change, the gap between them gets wider and wider until they're no longer walking the same path. Love can't close that gap. Effort can. Growth can. But only when both people choose it. Relationships are like a dance. If only one person is moving to the rhythm while the other just stands there, you don't have a dance, you have a struggle. You can't carry the whole relationship on your back while someone else drags their feet. And yet so many people convince themselves they can. They think, if I just grow enough for both of us, it'll work. If I just push harder, if I just sacrifice more, if I just take on all the responsibility, maybe we'll make it. But that's not growth. That's martyrdom. That's a slow death of your spirit. The truth is, you can't force someone to evolve. You can inspire them, yes. You can encourage them, yes. You can model what growth looks like. But at the end of the day, they have to choose. They have to want it for themselves. And if they don't, no amount of your love, your sacrifice, or your effort will drag them forward. Growth must be mutual because life will demand it. Life changes. Circumstances shift. Careers evolve. Families expand. Challenges hit. If only one of you adapts, the other gets left behind. And when someone gets left behind, resentment grows. One feels weighed down. The other feels inadequate. And both start blaming each other for the imbalance. Think about this. Have you ever seen a couple where one person starts to heal, to work on themselves, to chase goals, and the other stays stuck in old habits? At first, the love tries to hold them together. But over time, the distance becomes undeniable. Conversations don't feel the same. Priorities don't match. Dreams clash. One person wants to build, the other just wants to coast. That's when the bond starts to crack. Not because they stop loving each other, but because they stop growing together. Growth is not optional. Growth is the price of staying connected. And mutual growth doesn't mean you both have to grow in the same way or at the same speed. It means you're both committed to evolving. It means you're both willing to confront your flaws, to face hard truths, to push yourselves out of comfort zones. It means you're both on the same team when it comes to becoming better versions of yourselves. If you're the only one doing the work, the relationship will eventually feel like a burden. You'll find yourself shrinking your progress just to keep things balanced. You'll downplay your wins. You'll silence your dreams. You'll dim your light because you don't want to make the other person feel left behind. And in the process, you'll resent them and you'll resent yourself for settling. Mutual growth means accountability. It means if one of you slips, the other extends a hand and says, come on, let's get back up. It means if one of you is scared, the other says, we'll figure it out together. It means if one of you is struggling, the other doesn't look away, but leans in and says, I see you and I'm here. That's what keeps love alive. Not just the good times, not just the easy days, but the shared commitment to keep climbing even when the climb is hard. And here's something most people don't realize: growth isn't always glamorous. Sometimes growth means confronting your own toxic patterns. Sometimes it means admitting you've been wrong. Sometimes it means apologizing without excuses. Sometimes it means letting go of habits, friends, or environments that don't serve your relationship. And if both people aren't willing to do that work, the relationship becomes lopsided. One person evolves, the other resists, and suddenly they're no longer aligned. Ask yourself this: are we both growing? Or am I the only one carrying the weight? Are we both learning, changing, improving? Or am I constantly dragging someone who doesn't want to move? Because if growth isn't mutual, love starts to feel like labor. And love that feels like labor without reward eventually burns you out. The strongest relationships are not the ones without problems. They're the ones where both people grow through the problems. They're the ones where both people say, we are not perfect, but we are willing to talk, willing to listen, willing to change, willing to fight for the future instead of clinging to the past. Mutual growth means you're building, not just surviving. It means you're expanding, not shrinking. It means the relationship is a source of energy, not a drain. And when two people are both committed to growth, the relationship becomes unstoppable, because no matter what life throws at you, you're not just two individuals, you're a team that adapts, that evolves, that keeps moving forward together.